So the Rebbe in two following Farbrengens after that original mimer of Basaligani Tafshim Memhei, we learned a follow-up mimer, and there's a third mimer which we'll be learning this week. The Rebbe spoke more in Sichel language about the meanings of these Tzimtzumim, why we must say there are these Tzimtzumim, and so on. So there are two excerpts over here that we're going to learn. The first thing is from a Farbrengen from the Shabbos Parshas Yisroi Tafshin Memhei, and then there's going to be another piece from the following Farbrengen after that. So let's begin. Ois Aleph. Husker bar Maimer Yom HaYilula. It was mentioned the Maimer of the day of the Istalkos of the Frierdiker Rebbe. That's brought down in Kabbalah. It's also brought down in very select places in Chassidus. That there are also constrictions before the first constriction, which is very interesting. You're calling it Tzimtzum Harishon, the first constriction, and yet Chassidus says, yes, that's more in a general way, but there are other Tzimtzumim prior to that. So first the Rebbe is going to explain the logic why we say that there must be Tzimtzumim prior to the Tzimtzum Harishon. The Indians are moving on by Pashtus. This idea is also understood in a simple sense. The Sefer Tanya Mevarad Morazokin in the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe explains. When a Geloid Hashem is concerning the sunlight, it's obvious that this light and ray is also to be found in the very body and material of the sphere of the sun. And the logic behind it is, how do we know that this is so? That if the light expands and shines so far, in other words, so far out of the sun, how much more so that's able to shine in its place, meaning in the location of the sun itself. That's a quote from the Alter Rebbe. And then another quote of the Alter Rebbe, not only that, that over there in the sun, the sunlight shines and expands, its ray and its light, and even more powerfully, than its expansion and its ray in the in the actual space of the world. And these are two quotes from different places in Tanya. Well, the first one is Sharich Lamuna, the second one is from Tanya Perik Lamed Gimel. So in other words, it's a given that in its source, it's much more powerful. Once we've established that down here in the physical world, we have this type of concept, that within the very body of the sun, there is the sunlight, and there must be sunlight over there. This is also understood in the metaphor that we are deriving this for, concerning the light above, that this is also true. How come? Why do we say this also concerning the light above? Because from my flesh I perceive godliness. It doesn't just mean from the flesh of our body, but from the general way how the world runs, we can understand and appreciate the way the things are in the spiritual realms as well. Even before the light expands, spreads out, and it comes down the light, even prior to its descent before the Tzimtzum, and even in the Lifnei Tzimtzum light, in the most highest level of Lifnei Tzimtzum, it is initially a part of and within Hashem's very essence, similar to light, the way it's part of the sun. And what does it mean that it's like the light that's part of the sun? In the metaphor, in the comparison, in the analog, what is the sun that we're comparing it to? La'atzmas mamish, to Hashem's very essence, v'loy le'inyan ha'ma'or, and not the luminary aspect and if you will, trait of Hashem's essence. as we mentioned earlier when we were learning the Maimer, that there is the, if you will, the component or the aspect of Atzmus that is the luminary, and therefore it's the source for the light. And then and beyond that, there is Hashem's very essence itself that transcends even being considered a luminary and a source for light. Because luminary is already a description. And it's not just any description, va'adju toyar prati. It's a specific description, meaning it's a source for light. It's a very specific type of description that is very definitive and very boxed in, if you will. Lamata gama toyar di'echolos. It's even less than the description of capability. Kipirish inyan ma'ir, because the explanation of the idea luminary, who should be cholte lahoyer, is the idea that it has the capability to illuminate. So it's very specific, very defined. As opposed to when we just say Yecholos, there's something called Yecholos ha'atzmus, the capability of Hashem's essence. We do not explain what He is capable of. Because when we talk about Hashem's capability, it's referring to every type of capability, not just the capability to illuminate. It's a capability to do anything, and including things that we can't even imagine because we have no experience of it and we have nothing like it in our world. Like the well-known expression in Amar Chassidus, as far as Hashem's capability, as far as His yicholos, the capability to illuminate and the capability to not illuminate, one is not any more valuable than the other. They are both equal and the same. Even since even the idea of capability is not the very essence of Hashem, because Hashem transcends and surpasses His capabilities even. Hashem's very essence is just about His essential being beyond what, to put it coarsely, what He can do. There's so much more to Hashem's essence. Again, we cannot fathom, imagine what that is. So Hashem's essence, the Atzmus, is beyond the idea of His capability. Like it's brought down explicitly in many places in Chassidus. So how much more so if Hashem's etzem, the Atzmus of Hashem, transcends and surpasses even the level of plain yecholos, undefined yecholos. So how much more so is Hashem's essence beyond the level of ma'ir? So now, understanding that and realizing how much Hashem's essence is beyond even ma'ir, so now let's go back to the idea of the analogy of the sun and the light. That he started saying that the sun is referring to Hashem's essence, not only and not limited to the idea of the luminary aspect, the ma'ir aspect. The last two lines on the page, the idea of the sun in the analog is Hashem's essence. That Hashem's essence, His very being, is from His essence. Because Hashem's essence has no prior cause, chas v'sholom, not like every other existence. Even the oir, and even the yecholos, and even the ma'ir, all these things came about from Hashem's essence. V'sham, in Hashem's very essence, is kol ha'oir. Over there, in that essence, just like in the sun is the sunlight exists over there, so too in the essence of Hashem that transcends ma'ir, that transcends yecholos, in Hashem's very essence is the oir, of which later we're going to have the many tzimtzumim. and being over there in Hashem's essence, Harei, top of the next page, Hu Atzmos. It is Hashem's essence. Kisham, because in Hashem's essence, Hine HaKoil, everything, HaYecholos, HaMo'er, VaOir, Uchad Mamish. Everything is over there intermingled. The capability, the luminary, the light, everything is all intermingled in Hashem's essence. There's no divisions and compartments. Here is Hashem's Mo'er, here's Hashem's Yecholos, here's the Oir. No, it's all part of His very essence. Based on this, we can understand the logical need for Tzimtzum. So it's simply understood so I should be able to come down the first most level in light, from the light that's included in the sun, which in the nimshal that's atzmus. How do you say tzimtzum mavil? I've used an interesting expression. It's a shocking tzimtzum. It's an overwhelming tzimtzum. It's not just any type of okay, we'll have some tzimtzumim. You're going from one extreme to almost like another extreme. So now, once we've established the logic that to be able to take the Oir, if you will, out of Atzmus, out of being part of the Etzem of Hashem, to be able to become Oir. So after establishing that needs a powerful Tzimtzum, then we're going to go to the next step, that you need a following Tzimtzum after that. In a similar vein concerning the light, that's in a way, that is Hamshach, that's drawing down. Should be able to come down from the highest and the first most level until it comes to the level of the light that actually fills the entire possibility for space. And because it filled that possibility for space, we spoke in the Maimer, it didn't allow for the worlds to exist. So that transition from that oil that initially came out of Hashem's essence, like the light that comes out of the sun, after that tzimtzum, there had to be there had to go through many different tzimtzumim till it reached that level of the light that filled the entire space and didn't allow for the worlds to exist. Like it's explained in the Maimer at length about the different levels, the need for the tzimtzumim, and so on. Only after all these tzimtzumim that we just now refer to, then we come to tzimtzum addition. Then, only then comes the tzimtzum in the light that filled the entire space. So there should be room for the worlds to stand. Tzimtzum addition, that's the first tzimtzum. The reason why I put it in quotes is because it sounds a little bit funny. We were just now established there's other tzimtzumim, and here we're calling it the tzimtzum addition. Most places in Chassidus, as the Rebbe said, don't really refer to tzimtzumim higher than that. It refers to what we call the tzimtzum addition, and that's what Chassidus talks about a lot, the tzimtzum addition, and very rarely about the tzimtzumim prior to that. So now the Rebbe asks a very simple question. If it's such a given, and if it's so obvious and so logical that there are many tzimtzumim prior to the tzimtzum addition, so why doesn't Chassidus mention it? Or rarely mentions it. Concerning the question, why is it not spoken about these tzimtzumim? Now we begin immediately with the first tzimtzum, because the glory of Hashem is when things are concealed. It's almost like kol kvuda bas melech pnimo, something that you have lots of respect for, and that you're supposed to show respect for. You don't go revealing all the aspects and components of it. Chazal said, something that's wondrous from you, do not investigate, and something that's covered from you, do not seek out. So in other words, there are things that are like very lofty that are meant to be, if you will, to inspire awe by their lack of familiarity. When someone becomes very familiar with something, there becomes a certain type of lack of respect, a lessening of respect. There's an expression that Chassidim used to say that someone that is either a relative of the Rebbe or someone that works like for the Rebbe, a gabbai for the Rebbe, whatever, cannot be a true chassid. Why? Because there's a certain amount of familiarity that's there. There's a certain amount of comfort that's there. It says the Rebbe Rashab, when he established Chetmimim, and he was going to learn with pretty young Bachrim, not so developed yet, the deepest things in Seder Ishtalshlos, as we see from the Mamorim of those years after he established Chetmimim, that it was like way above, even the Mamorim that he said earlier. The famous Mamorim, Samach Vav, Ayin Beis, even or not, this all started in the wake of Chetmimim. So it says the Rebbe Rashab asked Mechila, forgiveness from Seder Ishtalshlos, because obviously the Bachrim will not necessarily know always what they're talking about, and they will be making a mishmash of Seder Ishtalshlos. The point is that familiarity, there's an expression in English, breeds contempt. Certain things, it's good to be removed. Even though in the same sichos the Rebbe speaks about the importance of knowing the Tzimtzumim, and what he says brought to the middle Rebbe, he's going to refer to it soon as well. And the truth is, this is not just concerning levels higher than the Tzimtzum Rishon, that we need to keep a little bit of a distance, and it needs to be a little bit awesome. But not only that, even concerning lower levels than the Tzimtzum Rishon, there are expressions that we are not permitted to speak about those levels. It's beyond us. How much more so in these levels of before the Tzimtzum. Now, this is true even in Kabbalah, that even just mentioning it, saying that there are these levels, which is what Kabbalah is. Kabbalah doesn't often explain the different levels that it refers to. It talks about the different levels without explaining them. So if that's true, that we're supposed to keep a certain distance about levels as it speaks about in Kabbalah, Chassidus, how much more so when we're talking about Chassidus, that Chassidus is about that we want to have it explained with understanding and comprehension in a way that we are sustained by it, meaning it's something that's intellectually digested, like Parnasa is for food that's physically digested. How much more so that it's even less allowable to speak about levels that needs more, that makes us even more familiar, because we're not just talking about them, we're trying to understand them. So the Rebbe asks, so then the question is the other way. So why is it mentioned at all in Chassidus? And the fact that in a few places it is spoken about the levels of the Tzimtzumim before Tzimtzum Rishon. Because after all is said and done, one has to know how the entire chain order of descent, beginning from light, because light is the means through which all things come into being. Like it's explained in Tanya in Igeres HaKodesh, the famous Igeres HaKodesh Chaf, that speaks about how Hashem's essence creates everything, that what is the vehicle for the creation process? The light is similar to the luminary, which is the luminary is the very essence of the Meitzel, of the emanator. that the very existence of the Atzmus comes from himself. Therefore, only Hashem's essence can create something, has a capability and his power to create something from nothing and total nothingness. And what transmits that energy from the Atzmus, what acts as the vehicle, the channel for that, that's the Oir, because the Oir is Mein HaMoir. So Haschalasi, the beginning of the Oir, where does it start? It didn't start after the Tzimtzum, but rather it begins Mizesha Kol Batzmus Yizbaruch Shu Noise HaKol. It started from the fact that the Oir was part of Hashem's essence, that the essence carries within it everything. It has a potential and capability for everything in it, so that's where the Oir began. So, since we need to know about how the Seder Ishtalshlus all begins from the Oir, we need to talk, at least in a few places, all the way up to the highest source of the Oir, even though too much talking about it is best not to go there. And the Rebbe gives an example from how the Rambam also speaks about the creation in a similar manner, if you will. So he says, 2 paragraphs in the bottom, similar to the expression of the Rambam, the language of the Rambam at the beginning of a Sefer, all existences from the heavens and till the earth, and everything in between them, everything including them, only came into being from his true being. What is this expression of his true beingness, his true existence? That's Hashem's very essence. So even the Rambam is like emphasizing this idea that we need to know where everything begins at. And then the Rebbe says another point. It's not just that we need to know it because there's a mitzvah of Yedias Hashem. This knowledge, this awareness actually helps us in our avodah. Especially this idea also assists the avodah of Yidden because Yidden reveal this in the world. A Yid needs to know his power and strength. Top of the 3rd page, he's one with Hashem's essence. It's known the saying of the Frierdiker Rebbe, whose yahrzeit was just now, that just like a person needs to know his deficiencies, he also has to know his qualities. So a Yid has to know with a full force who he is and how he has the power of Hashem's essence. How come? Maybe I don't need to know that. So the Rebbe says a very simple reason why. And the reason for this is so that the smart Alex shouldn't come, which is Melech Zokin V'Ksil, the old foolish king. In other words, the Nefesh Abamis Yitzhahara shouldn't come to the person. And he's going to want to tear the Yid away from his true being, meaning, which is Hashem, which is the true being of the Yid. How will he tear him away? By fooling him. Through fooling the person and convincing him that he's only connected with levels that are lower than Hashem's essence. So instead comes Chassidus and teaches the person, it's incumbent upon a Yid to know that he's one with Hashem's essence. And Torah and Hashem, loy prote adargis the Kodesh, zo, Baruch Malchus, not just he's that Kutchabrichu, which Kutchabrichu goes on Kodesh, the level that's beyond Biyah. The level that's beyond Biyah is the Sphirus of Atzilus. And Baruch Brichu, Baruch is the way it comes into the Biyah, that's Malchus, is one. So the truth is, it's not just Kutchabrichu as the term Kutchabrichu is limited to those levels, but Kutchabrichu as a term used on Hashem's very essence. Ki Matzmusi is Baruch, rather Hashem's very essence. A level, like we said, we're davening to him and not to his attributes. Kepirish Ad Morazokin, the Koil Atzmusi is Baruch. Like the Alter Rebbe explains that when it says B'chol Koreinu a love, and the Chazal say a love v'lo l'medosav to him and not to his attributes, means that we have to daven to Hashem Himself, not to His spheres. Oh, so Hashem Himself and the Yid is kula chad, is entirely one. Like it's explained to Amar Chassidus in tens of places. Harbe Yoser, many more places is mentioned about the Yid's oneness with Hashem's essence than Shebehem Husker Oidis HaTzimtzum Shalifnei HaTzimtzum Harishon, that in them it's mentioned about the Tzimtzumim prior to the first Tzimtzum. So this is the reason why it's important for us to know all these various levels, till realizing that Hashem's very essence is connected with us, so we shouldn't allow the Yetzer Hara to tear us away from the Eibishter and say, we don't have really a connection with Hashem anyway.